Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to our monthly Lunch and Learn session. So it's a webinar session that we run every single month and really designed to make sure that you, whether you own your own business or whether you work within a business, that you're getting the right business skills to take forward. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point, and very practical, so that we can make sure you're getting the right amount of value out of the day. Each month we have a different topic. So last month we had time management, time issues, not enough time, often the reality that most of us face. So we went through that. Today we'll be covering off on team, an issue of how to get a high-performing, coordinated and an aligned team working for you so that it's serving you rather than causing grey hairs and frustrations. And then next month, in fact, we're doing finance. And finance with a bit of a twist, understanding your numbers and really where to focus and breaking down what seems a little complex when you listen to your accountant, but actually pretty simple if you apply it to business. So that's how we do it. We make sure that we get you in and out in a kind of 30 minutes, 40 minutes max if there's a lot of questions, so that we can get you back to work and back focusing on what you need to do. You see my eyes moving around a little bit. I'm also keeping tabs on any questions, any comments. So if you have those, you're welcome to please type them in. And then we make sure that we deal with them as we're going along on the process. And we're going to try and make it as relevant to you as possible. We also do this in collaboration with Rocco and Riley. So for those of you that are in Techno Park, I'm sure you already know them. A great little coffee shop, really healthy food that goes with it. So I've got my wrap. I normally have my butternut salad. I've got my wrap for lunch today. And sorry, on the flyer, you'll see there, we're also doing a Meet the Neighbors. So if you are in the Techno Park area in particular, on Thursday at Rocco and Riley from 4 to 6, we're really getting some business owners together and getting us networking, meeting people around you that are like-minded so that you can focus on building and broadening your network. So a bit of a fun day there coming up Thursday. If you do want to share this with anybody else, go to impact.actioncoach.com and they're welcome to register for these webinar series. Like I said, one a month all the way through to November, making sure that we add as much value as possible. Action Coach is the world's #1 business coaching company. I brought it to South Africa 14 years ago. In fact, May the 3rd this year will be our 14th year in South Africa, our 14-year anniversary here. Globally, we operate in over 80 countries around the world and have been doing so since 1993. And I think the reality is this, still in 2021, we're trying to send people to Mars, yet we still haven't figured out how to teach people how to run a business. And even if you've been in business for a long time, what we often find is that one grows your business to a ceiling, to a comfort zone, to a point of saying, well, I know there's more, but, and the reality is we make sure that we give practical, easy to implement advice, guidance, systems, tools, and then of course coaching and mentoring through our advanced programs so that you can take what you learn here today and go and implement it immediately. It's not the theory, it's not sounds great in principle, how do I do it? You'll see it's practical, relevant stuff that we want to impart knowledge with you that you can go apply so that you can live up to the name Action Coach. It's not maybe tomorrow coach. It's not when I find the time coach, when the economy gets better coach, when we get a new president coach, because people used to say that before Zuma left. The reality is it's the actions that you take. So make notes, type in any questions, be interactive on the chat bar if you want, and let's make sure that you get a lot of value out of this. So I call them aliens. When you employ people, you employ aliens. Because the reality is in the beginning stages, if you're new to business, you probably can do everything quicker, better, faster than they can. Why? Because you started out as self-employed and self used to do everything. So I couldn't grow any further, so I employed some people, but I could still probably do it quicker, better, faster. The reality is you only can then use that to a point, and whilst staff end up watching you work yourself to death, you have to get to the point where you become a better leader, where you become a better manager, where you now start to get results through people instead of on your own. And it's no different if you've been promoted into a management or a senior management role. It's not about what you know anymore and what you do anymore that's important. It's how you transfer and get results through other people. And that's really a simplified process that I'm going to take you through today. When we obviously work with bigger teams and bigger organizations, we can actually unpack this in either team building or alignments. But it really starts with you. So the first point is you. It's the strong leadership. Now, here's how it works. Who gets to decide the leadership for your company if it's your company? You do. Yes, you might take input. Yes, you might take guidance. Yes, you're inclusive, but you dictate the leadership direction. That can be both good and bad. You also dictate the leadership style, which can be good and bad. And in strong leadership here, I'm not talking about strong bad leadership, but really strong leadership. And the best way to look at that is to go sit down, blank sheet of paper, and identify what is a good leader for you in your organization. If you're working for somebody else and you've been promoted to a senior level, what does strong leadership look like for you in your role? Because how must we live it? How must we bring people on this journey with us if we ourselves do not know what we stand for? If we ourselves do not know the direction that we're going to be taking. So I want you to first and foremost go define what is your strong leadership. Not where we're going yet with that leadership, you'll see that comes next, but what is that leadership? What is acceptable? What is not acceptable? If you know that you have some gaps, great, then identify that and how do you live up to that? Because this is the ideal of the strong leadership, and it's the journey you're going to take people on, but you might need to do some further development yourself. The other thing, just quickly on strong leadership before we move on, is to understand that your gut instinct, your intuition is often just your experience speaking. And as a good leader, you need to get to the point where you trust yourself. A good leader trusts themselves. You also trust yourself that if you make a mistake, and let me correct that by saying when you make a mistake, because all good leaders make mistakes. When you make a mistake, you will bounce back. You will take the necessary feedback and correct it. I met with somebody the other day, fantastic leader, everything they want in the organization they already have, but they're nervous, they're too scared to make a decision. The beauty about making decisions is if you make the wrong decision, you get immediate feedback. It's when you don't make a decision and you procrastinate and you hop over it that you really lose perspective, and that can be quite dangerous for you. So trust the leadership that you've gone and designed on that blank sheet of paper. And then you roll it out. So the first thing for a highly successful organization, a highly successful team, is that strong leader to guide it, to lead it, to nurture it. Most important. The second one is a common goal. Now, what is the common goal for your organization? And the sad reality is this: most companies, this is the truth, and tested in your own company, but even tested in other companies that you might be a shopper, a consumer of their product or service. Ask every single person that you interact with, what's the common goal? What are we working towards in this organization? If it's not your organization, then you ask other people, what's the common goal in your company? Have some fun and ask the lady at the checkout counter when you're buying your groceries, what's the common goal of Checkers, Woolworths, Spar, ShopRite, wherever you're shopping? And you'll often find exactly there what you will in your own organization. This blank stare that goes, I don't know, ask the boss. But if we're not all pulling in that same direction, how do we get there? So there's a famous story about John F. Kennedy walking in the halls of NASA, bumping into a janitor, or a cleaner as we know, and asking the janitor, what is it that you do here, sir? And with pride, the janitor said, I'm working to put a man on the moon. Because that was the singular focus of NASA in those early years. JFK promised we'll be within 10 years, man on the moon, and everybody pulled behind that. So there was a common goal. This morning when I presented on another session, we were unpacking the difference between vision and mission. And I used South Africa as an example. South Africa's common goal pre-94, the vision was a free South Africa for all. And no matter what angle they were coming from, that's what the vision was. We were trying to work towards a free South Africa for all. There were a lot of different missions that took place on that road, but the common goal was a free South Africa for all. What's now our current common goal as a country, as a people? Well, we have all these missions going on and all these little projects and all these little avenues, but for what? Towards what end? And that's why we want the common goal, so that we're working towards something that ties us all together. And albeit people will have different KPIs, people have different jobs, they'll have different roles to play, it's ultimately towards the same thing. Now, it's not just the vision, because the vision is maybe the ultimate goal. That's also important to know. But once you've broken it down, currently, what is it we're working towards? And again, good old blank sheet of paper, because it often exists in some way or form already. It was on a business plan, it was on our last year's strategy document, it's on our goal sheet, it's on our to-do list, but do we live it? I won't mention the name, a very big company that we worked with in the past, 4 directors sitting around the boardroom table, and I asked them, what's the common goal currently? And they said, oh no, very easy. We go away every year, we put together our strategy. It's part of a longer term 3-year strategy. Every year we review it. We have outside facilitators. And said, okay, well, what is it? No, we've got 4 key pillars, and each pillar has got a common goal. And I said, yes, that's the theory. What are the 4 key areas and the common goals in each? And between the 4 directors, they could come up with 3. Not very good. Because if the ownership, the leadership of the organization don't know what they are, how does the person that just let me in here and offered me a cup of tea know what it is? And that's the challenge we have as an organization. So the strong leader first. Second to that, what are we working towards collectively to go after to make this happen? Once we know what the common goal is, once we know what it is that we want to achieve, we can put some rules of the game together. We can create some boundaries to say, well, here is now the playing field. We're not going to be so restrictive that there's no movement, there's no flexibility, there's no opportunity for a bit of thought and insight. But we're going to create the boundaries to say, well, play within these areas, but don't exceed that. And again, I'll give you a practical example. So we used to do this big entrepreneurial conference a couple of years ago, and we were bringing speakers literally from all around the world. And our events lady that we had employed was busy organizing the flights for one of our speakers that was coming in from Australia. And she had the company card, and next minute late at night, one night, I got this SMS coming through to say that the transaction had been approved on the card for Qantas Airlines. And I was horrified at the amount that it was. And when I'd gone back, because now I tried to get hold of her, couldn't get hold of her, went back the next morning, and she said, well, you said we should buy a flight. Bought a flight. Yes, it was supposed to be a business class flight, but then there was complications, and she bought a one-way leg, which is always more expensive than a return. And it was in the most expensive class, and there was some flexibility to get it cheaper. So she did what was expected, but I hadn't established the boundaries. I hadn't said, well, within these budget ranges, within these parameters, make sure that these are the rules. Then you go and find the flight wherever you want. Then you can think and maneuver within that. And there's no impact to me or the organization or to you. So my mistake, quite an expensive mistake, but a great lesson to learn, and therefore the opportunity to put more rules of the game in place. And the rules of the game will evolve as your organization learns, as you implement the steps towards the common goal. You'll find that there's gaps, and then we close the gap. And then a new opportunity arises. Well, now we might have to stretch the boundaries a little bit. Now we employ a new person. Well, now the rules change again. Now the organizational chart with who reports to who is getting a little bit more complex, a little bit more sophisticated. Now the rules change. Somebody gets promoted, well, automatically we expect the rules to change. But do we go sit down and define them? More often than not, we just run in like a bull in the china shop, and then we're surprised when there's all this carnage around us. So we know that we're the strong leader. We've defined that. We know and understand what that looks like. We made sure that there's commonality around the goal that we're chasing. And now we've put the boundaries together to say, well, within this, these are the movements, these are the areas to maneuver, so that everybody knows what is ultimately expected of them and where they may tread and may not. Obviously, outside of those rules of the game is where there may be consequences, and the more they are defined, the easier it is to manage. So I love it when people say, don't want to employ more staff, so difficult to get rid of them. Well, why are you looking to employ them if you're looking to get rid of them? But there are some staff that end up you wanting to be getting rid of because they haven't fulfilled the role or there's some other issue. Well, the more the rules of the game are clear, the more you've actually followed a very pragmatic act process.
I didn't catch that. Could you try again?
That's very just. The easier it is then to actually get rid of the staff member, if that's what needs to happen. So, but it's about having those rules in place and following the due process, which is. If we know the rules of the game, now we put together an action plan. And it was interesting this morning on the session that I presented, somebody asked the question, said, well, there's actually quite a few reasonably popular books out there that say, banish the business plan. Planning is a waste of time. The world is changing and evolving too quickly. Nobody had coronavirus on their business plan, and look what that did to places. Well, no, that's rubbish. Because the reason you put a plan together is to make sure that we've thought through the steps and the rollout towards the common goal within these boundaries. We've taken what is the theory often in our heads and we've put it down on a piece of paper so that others have clarity of what needs to happen. And business owners in particular hate this part because it, one, forces commitment to the plan. Number two, it takes a bit of time and attention to detail, or at least the patience to document the plan. But then we have to stick with it. Now, many entrepreneurs said to me, well, I like the flexibility. I like to wing it, go with the flow, opportunities arise, I wheel and deal, all the rest of it. And I go, that's great. Because you're doing that, your business, lots of experience that's built up over years, and therefore I expect you to be able to be nimble, to wheel and deal, to be looking at the horizon, to seeing new opportunities. But do you want your staff to be doing the same? Do you want them to wing it? Pitch up in the morning, go, well, had a great idea this morning, let's start with that. Bugger what was planned before, I've got a new idea. No, that's why you have the plan, to keep everybody honest, to keep everybody structured, and dare I say, a good plan, and not a theoretical plan, just the word says action plan, keeps us focused and actually helps with procrastination. I was asked this morning another question saying about procrastination and how do you get around that. Easy, you have a plan. Because it's often the fantasy of the goal, not the clarity of the goal, the fantasy of the goal and chasing my to-do list that causes the procrastination. We don't have the clarity of the goal and the action plan, and therefore the activities are all over the place. And then we should do this, but maybe we should do that. And then I feel like this, but I don't feel like that. No. Clarity of the goal with the detailed action plan help us then roll it out. And if we've got multiple layers of our organization, well, the common goal is the same. Now we break those goals down into different departments, into different roles, into different divisions, and sometimes even into different companies. Okay. Now each needs an action plan for the division, for the company, for the department. Now within that, there may be another layer or two with supervisors or whatever. Great, then what's their action plan? And I am not going to put the action plan together for every single person in my organization. No. I put together, with input, the overarching action plan, and then I cascade that down, expecting other people in an organization to do the same. So that's the way to go about operationalizing your action plan. Now that we've got the boundary set within the ultimate goal we're chasing, and we actually know who needs to do what, when, and how, does this become a problem? No, we actually encourage staff to take risks. We actually encourage people to think out the box. We actually spend time looking for different innovative ways of doing what's already been planned, because we know it's within the plan and the rules of the game framework leading towards our goals. When we get into that micromanagement fear zone, it's because we haven't established the rules. It's because we haven't got clarity around where we're going, and therefore we haven't got a plan. Now I don't want people to take risks, because that's going to cost me money. There's no framework with which they can even think about taking risks. And therefore the downside of that risk is what I fear. But if I know the parameters, then the fear is less. So let's say you're going up really high, not even a mountain, not even Table Mountain. Let's say you may be going on the top of the skyscraper, you're going out on the balcony, or you're going up in an aeroplane and the doors are open and you're hanging outside. That's a fear zone. Am I wanting to support risk-taking there? No. But if the safety checks have been done, if there's a parachute attached, if there's a backup parachute and a process of how I'm going to do that, then can I actually jump out the airplane? Can I then go out on the balcony and tightrope if I really wanted to? Well, yes, because I'm not taking that big a risk anymore, because it's within a plan that's been well researched, well thought out. It's within the boundaries of what is safe and what's not safe. And it's actually the goal, which is to take photos of Robben Island and Table Mountain in the sea as I'm jumping out the airplane. Well, that's fine. Then I can support risk taking. But if I haven't done the work, then I'm not going to support the risk taking. And a leader is often the problem here, not so much the staff. The leader doesn't encourage thinking, doesn't encourage taking risks, wants to absolutely control everything. Well, that cascades down through all the organization. And eventually, everybody sits around going, yeah, then why bother? Because it's not good enough. It's not a good idea. It's not going to work. We're not allowed to. Then one time I thought about it. I got a club. Of course, you shouldn't club yourself. I'm just speaking figuratively in the process. Then nobody ends up taking risks anymore. And business is a process of risks. Quantifiable, justifiable, mitigated risks is what makes us successful at the end of the day. And the last key to a winning team is to ensure, not encourage, not hope for, not expect, ensure 100% involvement and inclusion from everybody. Now, any organization has that. Some people are working, some people not so much, some people not at all. My favorite is if you see a burst pipe and there's a whole lot of people around trying to fix the burst pipe. Some are sitting in the bucket, some are standing around, but the volume of people actually there versus those actually attending to the problem, maybe 20%. Now, a lot of companies are not as bad as 20%, but that's not what we want. We want everybody to be pulling in the same direction. So how do we check this? Well, make sure everybody knows the common goal. Do something as basic as timesheets. It doesn't have to be complicated. You draw up a little spreadsheet, hours of the day, activities, and people fill it in. So we can see what are they doing, not to double check that they're stuffing around, messing around. No, we want to double check that they are actually on task, that they're not doing things that is taking too much time and there's an easier way, or they may be doing things that's not quite going to get them to where they need to be. So timesheets, a great one. Staff meetings, critical. One-on-one reviews with your staff, annual appraisals, all opportunities to ensure that we get everybody pulling in the same direction. Because otherwise there's limited people doing the effort, and a lot of people are just free riding. Or if we get rid of the free riders, automatically we get more performance. If we ensure a little bit more of the potential that can turn into actual output and performance, automatically the organization gets better. So the way I want you to maybe do this is we call it the PIP exercise. So if I ask any business owner, are your staff living up to 100% of their potential? Do you think they're living up to 100% of their potential? And they will always say to me, no. The odd one may be close, but on average, definitely not. Nobody's living to 100% of their potential. What is 100% of potential? Don't know, but are they living into it? Absolutely not. Okay. If I go to the staff and I say, right, do you think that you're delivering 100%? Everything that you can offer is offered, and the business is extracting maximum value out of you. Any on-staff member, especially after a question or two following that, is going to say no. Okay, so potential is here and is not 100% and unlimited, supposedly, and performance is there and it's not the same. What stands in the middle? And the gap between potential and performance is interferences, PIP, principle. So if you're not happy with the performance, but supposedly there's untapped potential, it can only be interferences. And as a strong leader, that's your primary role. Your role is to remove interferences. The more the interferences go down, potential was staying the same, the more the performance goes up. The more interferences you bring down and remove and help eradicate, the more the performance goes up. It's as simple as that. So when we design our team and our organization, and we want to make sure that we design success, we design it from the top down of those principles. Strong leader, clearly defined. Written down, clear as nails, 100% everybody on board, common goal. We've defined the boundaries, rules of the game, number 3, so that we can then put together an action plan, number 4. When we've got the action plan in number 4, now it's easy to say, okay, no problem. We can allow for risks. We can allow for some thinking. We can allow for actually why we pay people to bring their expertise within these parameters to what we're trying to achieve. And then we're going to support risk taking. So we design it from the top down, and then we manage it from the bottom up, making sure everybody's on board. All those different avenues that I spoke about. If we see that we're not coming up with new ideas, if we're hitting the same problems, then we ask, where can we take risks? Where's the opportunity that's maybe risky, but let's get that knowledge. Okay, is the plan still right? Do we need to tweak it? Are our rules still right? Are there gaps? Do we need to just cement a couple of things that have come up in the long while? Because the common goal, ideally, we don't want to change. We don't want to change that at all. That must stay the same. So I hope that's been useful. If you've got any questions, type them in. Gladly take some questions. I want to make sure that in your lunch and learn session, you get as much value as we can possibly give you, and while you're having lunch, and then you can go take that back to your company, or to your department, your organization, whatever that may be. For more information on the events that we run, just go to impact.actioncoach.com. That's actually our Stellenbosch focused coaching business. Up until recently, this was always just the national head office. We've got an office in Centurion, and the Stellenbosch office looks after the whole of the country, excluding Gauteng. And we're now turning that into a more coaching focused business in the Stellenbosch office. So you can get all the information on what we're up to there. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. I hope to meet you if you are in the area at our Meet the Neighbors on Thursday at 4 o'clock. Of course, all the normal protocols will be observed, but it's a great opportunity to just get out and about at Rocco and Riley, our partners on this event. And then for future months, like I said, next month we're doing finance. So make sure you grab some lunch, order it from Rocco Riley. They deliver it literally to your premises, and then you're good to go for lunch. Let me just look through the questions here. Just one question: how do you get the most out of staff? You spend time with them. You'll hear me say this often. Children spell love, T-I-M-E, time. Spend time with them. How do staff spell love? The same thing. Staff come to you with a set of challenges, hang-ups, issues, but with a set of skills, experience, all the rest of it. It's your role to tap as much of that as possible. Also know that staff go through the same transition phases that children do. First couple of months, they're cute, they're beautiful, they're babies, they love you. Then they start taking risks, you don't like it, they want to walk, they bump their heads, they cry, they go through terrible twos, you want to kill them. Then they go into the question mode, why must we do this, why not that, why? Just gets a little bit better, then they become teenagers, and oh my word, if you've ever had a teenager live in your house, you'll know that that's a challenge. And if you get through that phase, they become normal human beings, 20-something kids, and your relationship changes, and they'll probably be there forever, and it works. It's no different in business. So to extract the most amount of time, understand that there will be those cycles, or the most amount of value, understand the cycles, and then spend time with them. That's a critical part of that. If they were these magic human beings that are just as good as you, that take ownership on their own, have no issues, never get sick, never bring issues to work, then they'll go out and open their own business anyway. So it's still the number one leverage opportunity that we have. So make sure that you use that. Another question here. Yes, anybody's welcome to Lunch and Learn. It doesn't matter where they're based. So you can encourage them to go to the website and register. Once you've registered once, you get the reminders for all the year, for all the different themes. You'll also see what the different themes are, so they're more than welcome to attend. Yeah, great. Thanks for the comment. We'll see you on Thursday then at the Meet the Neighbors. It is critical for business owners to start getting out and networking and interacting again. Just confirming, next month will be finance. And not finance, debits and credits accounting wise, or raising finance more. How do we take financial numbers? How do we manage our business with a finance kind of hat on? And again, very practical, in and out in 30 to 40 minutes. So those are the questions that we've had. Thanks very much for that. Thanks for your participation. If you haven't already had lunch from Rocco and Riley, make sure that you get yours delivered. I'll be having mine now. And then either I will see you on Thursday at the Meet the Neighbors, or we'll see you next month, second Tuesday of every month at 1 o'clock for the finance session. Appreciate your time. Make sure you take action. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, step 6. Very simple process so that you take strong leadership through the common goal within the boundaries of the rules of the game, so that you ultimately get all the success that you need. It's been a privilege to spend this time with you, and have a great afternoon. Cheers. Bye-bye.